Hello learners and welcome to Natural Sciences lesson where we're going to be dealing with reactions between metals and oxygen. So today we're going to be doing practice questions that are based on that particular reaction of metal and oxygen. So let's start. So the first question given to us says, consider the chemical equation for this reaction. So we have Fe plus O2 reacting to form Fe2O3. So we have iron, we have oxygen as our reactants, and then we have iron oxide as our product. So what we're supposed to be doing is to balance the above equation. So remember, in order to balance this equation, we need to make sure that on the left-hand side, on the reactant side, the number of atoms there are equal to the number of atoms of the right-hand side, being the products. So by looking at this equation, we can clearly see that on the left-hand side, we have one iron, but on the right-hand side, we have two of them. And then the left-hand side again, we have two oxygen, but on the right-hand side, we have three oxygen. So those two particular elements, they are not balanced. So to balance them, we need to rewrite this equation. So Fe plus O2 reacting to form Fe2O3. Then we need to put in coefficients. Remember, coefficients are written in front of the chemical symbol. And then the ones that are written at the bottom to the right of the chemical symbol, they are known as subscripts. When we balance, we do not touch the subscripts, but we only change the coefficients. So as it stands like this, the coefficients of each of these particular elements of these substances here, it is 1, 1, 1 each. We have 1, 1, and 1. So now we need to change those particular substances to balance. So if I put in a 2 here, I will now see that I have 2 ions on the left-hand side and 2 ions on the right-hand side. But my oxygen is still not balanced because I have 2 of them here and 3 of them on the right-hand side. So how do I then fix that? If I put a 2 there, if I try to balance that with a 2, now that changes now the ions because 2 multiplied by 2 is going to give me 4. So that will be 4 Fe, these are the products. And then the oxygen, 2 times 3, that gives me 6 oxygen. Remember that these are the products. So now going back to the reactants, they are still not balanced because I have 2 and I have 2. So to balance that, I need to insert a 3 there. And in doing so, I see that for the reactants, 3 times 2 gives me 6 oxygen. And then 2 Fe is still not balancing. I need to make sure that I have 4 ions. So to do that, I can just simply erase the 2 and put a 4. Now I have 4 ions on the reactant side. And you notice that now my atoms are balanced on both sides of the equation. So in order for us to get this particular molecule or this particular compound as our iron oxide, we need 4 atoms of iron. We also need 3 molecules of oxygen so that when they react together, we need to have 2 iron oxide or 2 molecules of iron oxide. So the next question requires us to give the word equation for this reaction. So we do know that Fe means iron, and then O2, that's our oxygen, and the product is iron oxide. So the word equation will then be iron plus oxygen reacting to form iron oxide. So this is our word equation. So moving on to the next part of the question, which now requires us to write now the word equations for when the following metals react with oxygen. So when lithium reacts with oxygen, when potassium reacts with oxygen, and lastly, when calcium reacts with oxygen. We do know that when a metal reacts with oxygen, it forms a metal oxide. So lithium reacting with oxygen will give us the word equation that says lithium plus oxygen will react to form lithium oxide. So that is going to be lithium oxide. Then the next one, potassium reacting with oxygen, what is it going to give us? So the word equation there, we know this is going to be our potassium. It's going to be our potassium. Let's write it here. Plus oxygen. This will react to form potassium oxide. So it's our iron oxide. Our iron oxide, so let's write it nicer. Yes. Potassium oxide. So the last one is calcium. So when calcium reacts with oxygen, we have calcium reacting with oxygen. Calcium reacting with oxygen. This is going to react to form calcium oxide. So this is how we write our weight equations for these particular metals that we have. So moving right along, we need to give now the chemical symbol for the following reactions. So we are working backwards. We are given the weight equations. We are supposed to give the chemical symbols for each of these reactants and products in these reactions. So sodium, we know that it has a chemical symbol of Na. It's capital letter A and small letter, capital letter N and small letter A. This reacting with oxygen, we know that oxygen is a diatomic molecule. So it exists as 2. When you're writing it on its own without it chemically being bonded with anything else, it is O2. Then our product is sodium oxide, that is going to be Na2, subscript 2, and then O. So before we can move on to the next one, we need to make sure that the number of atoms on the left-hand side are equals to the number of atoms on the right-hand side. So let's count. On the left-hand side, we have 1 sodium. On the right-hand side, we have 2 of them. So the sodium is not balanced. Then on the left-hand side, there's 2 oxygen, but on the right-hand side, there's 1 oxygen. So how do we then balance that? Now to make more space, let's just write it underneath. So we start by balancing out to the oxygen because that's an easy fix. If I put a 2 there, now the oxygen, the sodium is balanced and the oxygen is now not balanced. So there's still 1 and 2 on either side. So if I put another 2 there, so that means I've created another problem because now the 2 multiplied by this 2 gives me 4. So now I have 4 sodium. But the oxygen is balanced. So that means if oxygen is balanced, then the sodium can easily be fixed by just putting a 4 there. Because you now know that you have 4 sodium on the left-hand side, 2 times 2, there's 4 sodium on the right-hand side. Oxygen is 2, and then these 2 multiplies everything within this particular compound, so therefore we have 2 oxygen. So that is balanced. Next question. Now again, chemical symbol for now magnesium reacting with oxygen to form magnesium oxide. So magnesium has a chemical symbol, capital letter M, small letter G, plus oxygen, remember, it's a diatomic molecule. This reacts to form MgO. So to balance, again, we check the number of atoms on the left-hand side, comparing that with the number of atoms on the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side, we have 1 oxygen, we have 1 magnesium and 1 magnesium. So magnesium is balanced, but oxygen, there's 2 of them on the left-hand side and there's 1 on the right-hand side. So that's an easy fix if I put a 2 there. Now that 2 multiplies my oxygen, so that gives me 2 oxygen on the right and 2 oxygen on the left. So oxygen is balanced. But with the magnesium, that 2 also multiplies the magnesium, so I have 2 magnesium atoms on the right-hand side, but I have 1 on the left-hand side. So if I just put a 2 there, that solves everything else because I have 2 atoms on the left-hand side of magnesium, 2 atoms of oxygen on the left-hand side, then on the right-hand side, 2 magnesium atoms and 2 oxygen atoms. So now before we move on, we're going to quickly go for an ad break and I'll see you just after this.